Hi there. Welcome to Austin at Issue. I'm Alberta Phillips of the Austin American-Statesman. Welcome to a special report on the city's energy future from KUT 90.5 FM, KLRU TV, and the Austin American-Statesman. Over the next year, we will bring you periodic discussions of the key issues facing our Central Texas community. But this evening, we look at the Austin Resource and Climate Protection Plan to 2020. This plan represents the recommendations of Austin Energy for meeting the city's electric needs for the next decade. The plan has been in development for nearly 2 years, and the city has held several public forums on the topic. Another important thing to keep in mind is that the City Council is expected to vote on it within the next few weeks. This evening's program will take place in 2 parts. We begin with an interview with Austin Energy General Manager Roger Duncan about the details of the plan. He will be interviewed by Statesman City Hall reporter Marty Toohey and KUT City reporter Mose Bushell. After that, I'll be back with a roundtable of various stakeholders in the process, and we'll talk about the plan. Let's begin with Austin Energy General Manager Roger Duncan.
So Roger, can you give us an overview of this plan and why Austin Energy is recommending it be adopted?
Absolutely. At Austin Energy, our main mission is to provide clean, affordable, reliable energy and excellent customer service. This plan is a plan to try to balance those 3 elements of clean, affordable, and reliable. It's a staff recommendation, but it's not the only way to balance that, and that's what the council needs to consider, is how do you balance clean, affordable, and reliable. And it's just a plan. I need to emphasize that this decision doesn't authorize the construction of any power plants or purchase of any power. It's a plan for staff to develop projects to bring forward to the council, and the council will decide on each individual project over the next several years whether to proceed with a particular fuel or technology at that time, and they'll look at the cost and the environmental impact and other factors at that time. Given that, in balancing clean, affordable, and reliable, clean is the first objective here that we look at. The council has been concerned with the emissions from our power plants for many years. Back in 2003, council adopted a strategic plan for Austin Energy that gave us goals to meet by the year 2020 and how much renewable energy we need to have, how much energy conservation, how much solar, and other factors. In 2007, they updated that with the Austin Climate Protection Plan, and the goals set in that plan were that by the year 2020, we should have 30% of our energy coming from renewable energy, 100 megawatts from solar, 700 megawatts from energy efficiency methodologies. And the plan also said to come back with a plan to cap and reduce our CO2 emissions from our power plants. In our system, 70% of our carbon or CO2 emissions comes from one power plant, the Fayette coal plant in LaGrange. So any plan to do that has to address Fayette. What we have come forth with is a plan that does several things. First, it increases our energy efficiency efforts. Energy conservation is our #1 priority for meeting all new load growth in the utility. It is by far the cheapest and the cleanest way to meet new load growth. In addition, we bring forth new wind and solar and biomass renewable energy over the next 10 years to meet the goals that the council set forward. By doing that, in the year 2020, the Fayette coal plant should be operating at about 60% capacity in that year, and thus it reduces our overall carbon emissions from our system. How we do that affects the second of the goals, affordability. We have to do this in a way so that it's affordable to our ratepayers. We can't balance these environmental goals on the backs of our low-income customers, in particular our moderate-income customers, our commercial businesses and large industrial customers have to have rates that allow them to remain competitive among their peers. And we recognize that, and it's a big issue for us. But when you consider affordability, there are two things that have to be taken into account. One is that electric bills are going to rise anyway, no matter what we do, because our current electric generation is coming from power plants that are mostly paid off in debt. They're under fuel contracts that are pretty good fuel contracts that are going to run out in a few years. There's additional cost of transmission lines that have to be built, and our distribution system needs expansion. Put all that together, and no matter what option we choose for generation, the electric bills are going up. So it's really a discussion of relative increases in cost to our consumer between now and 2020 and beyond 2020. The plan that we're proposing is somewhat in the middle ground. It is not the cheapest alternative between now and 2020, but it's far from being the most expensive. That's the balance that we're trying to achieve. This plan that we're talking about would increase bills on the generation portion of the bill by about 22%. Other plans are going to increase it 15 to 20% anyway if you do virtually nothing. Other plans could increase it 30% or more if you're very aggressive in moving these renewable energy technologies in early. So it's a matter of balance. The third element, reliability, is something that we're concerned with, but it's not a major concern. We consider all the options to be fairly reliable. We wouldn't entertain an option that would make our electric system unreliable. So that's the balance we're trying to achieve in this new plan.
One thing that has come up a lot is that as we're discussing this, we're going to have a rate case in 2012. I don't know if you could explain that process to our viewers and how that will kind of interact with this plan if it goes forward.
Well, that's a good question. The rate case is a process established by the Austin City Council. The council is the board of directors, if you will, of the utility. And they set the rates for each class of customers, the residential and commercial industrial customers. We haven't had a rate case in 15 years now in Austin. And it's a public process with hearings and recommendations, and the council makes the final decision on that. We're anticipating a rate case for rates to be effective in October of 2012. An important thing to note is that this generation plan will not be part of that rate case. We have to raise rates for reasons other than this generation plan. Transmission and distribution systems being built, several other reasons. So the power plants and fuels that are in the latter years of this plan will be handled in a future rate case, not the one that's under current consideration.
A number that we've heard is 60%, that one's bills might go up to 60%. That is not just including the 22% that is estimated under this plan, but also taking other factors into consideration. Is that a number that you would agree with? And if so, how does that break down? What are the factors that would add to that?
I can't comment. I don't know how they arrived at a 60% figure. We did calculations on what the generation portion of the plan would impact, and that's where I came up with the 22% issue. And I have to say, in fairness, all these numbers are really fuzzy because you're depending on fuel cost, technology changes, transmission build-outs. No one really has a good handle on what those costs are going to be in the year 2020. We're doing the best we can with the estimates.
That said, can you give us a range working off, say, the average home, as I understand it, has a average electric bill monthly of about $100. Working off that, where does the staff recommendation fall? Where was one of your lower cases, and where was one of the higher cases?
If I remember correctly, the staff impact would be around an extra $21 a month from the generation side. That's at 22% increase. The least cost option was about a 15% increase, I think. There was another option that met council goals that was a 19% increase, so it's pretty close. The shut Fayette plant option early was a 33% increase in comparison with those. I don't have the dollar amounts, but I know the 22% is roughly a $21 a month increase.
Some interested parties have asked for a sample bill. Say it's the year 2020, and you want to look at what what an average homeowner might be paying by that point. And they've said that they haven't been able to get one from Austin Energy yet. Does that go back to this question of there's no crystal ball to see exactly, or why couldn't we see a bill that might kind of approximate what people would be paying?
Well, because there are so many variables, and they're so great in width. You've got to know what the price of gas, coal, uranium, solar, wind, biomass, what the transmission build-out is of the state by that end that we pay 4% of, what the distribution system build-out is based on our growth. And many of those numbers on the price of some of these fuels have wide bands. And so we could give you, we could break all that down and give you a number, but it would be almost an order of magnitude in breadth, and it's not really meaningful. And I joke and say about the only thing I can guarantee about the numbers that it will be wrong in 2020.
One of the main points, if I'm understanding this correctly, is that Austin would gradually, at night, not get power from Fayette and replace that with wind. Is that an accurate summation?
That's accurate. In fact, that is already occurring. We have about 430 megawatts of wind right now coming in from West Texas, and on cold winter nights, the coal plant does ramp down some and is replaced by wind.
In the end, the fate of Fayette isn't only dependent on Austin and what we do.
That's correct.
We could undertake this plan and still see that coal plant operational. What are some of those other hurdles, and how are we assured that by relying more on renewables on our end, we will end up having an impact on carbon emissions there?
Well, there are some caveats. We do expect this plan to ramp down the capacity factor of that plant to about 60% over the course of a year. But that's achieved by ramping it down lower than that, and sometimes in the year and not at other times. There's also operational considerations of the plant. You can only ramp it down to about 10 or 20% of capacity before you have to shut it down completely. And you can't start it up and shut it down like an automobile engine quickly. So that's an operational consideration. There's also a reliability consideration with the state grid. And ERCOT, the Electric Reliability Council of Texas, has final say on when any plant in the system operates or not. The electric grid has to remain stable. They make the decision on a day-by-day basis where any plant has to operate.
So do you think you can do this then?
Yes, we're confident that we should be able to ramp down the capacity of that plant. As to shutting down the plant in the future, that's a question that will have to be answered at that time, because whether it's 2020 or 2030 or whenever the decision comes, ERCOT will have to look at all the plants at that time in the system and see if this plant is needed.
I'm kind of interested in how it seems as though at some points, when the plan seems to be too intimidating to some people, advocates can say, well, it's just a plan, it's highly flexible. But then if it's that flexible, what assurances do people have that it will actually end up being more than just kind of a set of lofty goals that don't end up being accomplished?
Well, the plan has specific types of power plants and fuels year by year. It is not in cement when you pass the plan, but it does give direction to the staff to develop the proposal to bring back wind turbines or solar plants or a biomass plant roughly in the years that we have in those plans. And at that point, the council decides on each one. So it has a lot of flexibility in that year by year you can change the plan, but it also gives the staff the ability to start planning and saying, okay, we need so many megawatts of wind in 3 years from now. Let's start seeing how we're going to get that and bring it forward to council.
Roger, thanks for joining us.
Thank you very
Appreciate
much.
it.
Thanks,
Thank
Roger.
you.
Joining me now are 5 individuals who represent just a few of the many groups that have been actively engaged in the development of the proposed electric generation plan. Philip Schmadt is chairman on the Austin City of Austin Electric Utility Commission and the Mayor's Task Force on Generation Resource Planning. John Sutton is a past president of the Building Owners and Managers Association International. Carol Bajitsky is the executive director of the Texas Ratepayers Organization to Save Energy. Matt Johnson is a policy analyst for energy efficiency and renewable energy with Texas Public Citizen. And Christian Gonzalez is the communications director for the Diocese of Austin. Welcome, everyone. Philip, let's begin with you. You voted for the plan, in favor of the plan. Tell us why.
Well, thank you. First of all, I want to encourage every citizen of Austin to come to the town hall meeting. This is every citizen's chance to think globally and act locally. Every citizen of Austin is essentially an owner of Austin Energy, and this is an opportunity for the owners of Austin Energy to come together and decide what is the right direction that Austin Energy should take for the next 10 years. Right now, thinking big picture, Austin Energy gets its energy from essentially 3 baskets: nuclear, coal, and natural gas, with a little bit out of wind and a tiny little bit out of solar. And what the plan is doing essentially is saying, let's change it from 3 big baskets to 4 big baskets. Let's diversify our energy portfolio so we have nuclear, we do have some coal, but less coal. We do have natural gas, but less natural gas. And let's also increase our investment in wind and solar and renewable energy. And I think that's a smart investment to make right now to diversify our risks and to spread the costs among 4 different baskets of energy rather than just 3.
Well, thank you so much. That kind of gives us a starting place. And Carol, tell us what your perspective on this new plan is, please.
And thank you, Alberta. Like Philip, I would like to see the city move forward with the plan that was proposed along with the recommendations of the task force. And I am interested in having the plan move forward for a number of reasons. The biggest reason is that we are recognizing the fact that we have a growing problem with the affordability of electricity here in Austin. We have seen that in the past year, there has been an increase in the number of people who have asked for assistance with their utility bills. We've had an increase in the number of people receiving food stamps in Travis County. And different studies have shown that about 40% of the Austin population is living at a very moderate standard of living. Therefore, we have to be careful that utilities don't become too expensive for the average person to afford them. One of the recommendations that the task force included in the plan, which we are in favor of having moved forward, is to increase energy efficiency programs, but to target those programs to people who would not normally be able to invest in energy efficiency. We want to try and resolve the affordability issue by lowering usage in individual households by making them more efficient. One of the recommendations that is included in the plan is to design a program to make energy efficiency affordable to people who live at incomes between 200 and 400% of the federal poverty guideline. Now, what that means is an individual making maybe $40,000 a year, a family of 4, with a total income of $88,000 a year. Now, these are families that have jobs in the community. They pay taxes. They probably have enough food to eat. They have a roof over their head. But when they get done taking care of all the normal expenses that we all have for living from day to day, there's nothing left over to invest in energy efficiency. So this is a huge market here in the city of Austin, one that has huge energy efficiency potential, and we would like for that to be tapped.
And I'd like to talk with John now and to give us another perspective from the business community.
Right. Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to bring forth our opinions on this plan. Basically, we agree with the plan's intent, but we do have some issues with it, and our primary concern is the affordability. With this current plan, your electricity bill is going to go up 60% over the next 10 years. We're also concerned about the transparency of Austin Energy. Under the current plan, they were trying to meet a schedule rather than an opportunity. And so about a year ago, they, without taking bids and largely without any input from its major customers, they recommended the purchase of a $2.3 billion biomass plant that will be built in Nacogdoches and will provide energy. But it's the Sierra Club has said that it's not clean energy, and at this point it's not even really a good purchase. So we're concerned that their purchases have been made just to meet a deadline and not to meet the real goal of reducing CO2. We're also concerned about conservation because we believe that the cheapest and best megawatt is one that's not used. The current plan plans for 800 megawatts of conservation. We recommend there should be at least 1,000 megawatts energy saved, and that this can be attained by the savings from the business community and through the residential people as well.
Thank you so much. We're going to hear now from Matt, because you are the green energy advocate, and we'd like to hear your perspective as well.
Sure. Thank you for having me on. Public Citizen is pretty supportive of this plan for a variety of reasons. First off, in terms of minimizing the rate impact for low-income customers, I think the beauty of this plan is its flexibility. If, say, for instance, the price of solar is more expensive in 7 years than we thought it was going to be, Austin Energy has the ability to change and adapt and go with something else. So I think that's a great protection for consumers. In addition, one of the biggest components of this plan is energy efficiency, which we all agree is the cheapest energy resource. In terms of climate protection, I think the carbon reduction goals work in tandem with affordability goals, insofar as saying that the energy efficiency could be achieved between 800 and 1,000 megawatts. That's the largest component of the plan, and that reduces carbon. Wind is also a big component of this plan, and that's now cost competitive with conventional energy resources, and that also will work to lower bills, because the alternative would be stuck in, we might have been stuck in buildings, for instance, a large coal plant, a large nuclear plant, something that we can't get out of. And the third big reason that we support this plan is its potential to attract economic development, particularly green jobs. The energy efficiency component means a lot of weatherization professionals, a lot of construction jobs, solar installers for our distributed renewable goals. Those are all things that spur economic development here in Austin.
I want to move and talk to Christian from the Diocese of Austin, because we have talked a bit about the rates and what's going to happen with that. So can you bring us the perspective from the Diocese of Austin?
Sure. Well, certainly the Catholic Church encourages everyone to be good stewards of God's creation, that is the earth and its resources, and that is our concern. Our next concern is that we cannot, we want to move to green energy, but we cannot do that on the backs of the poor to the detriment of the poor. So that is our primary concern when we look at this generation plan, we also look at the totality of other things going on by Austin Energy. And the first is that we're going to see an increase on our bill from an upgrade to the ERCOT grid, the electricity grid across the state. The second is that Austin Energy is also proposing a rate increase that will increase everyone's bill. And then there's also an annual fuel charge. In addition to that, there will be the rate plan. So when you take the totality of those four components and put them together on someone's bill, that has us concerned that may move people who are within the border of the poverty level. It may push them down, and that overall it may have a negative impact on the cost of living within the city, because if you have to pay more for electricity, that's less that you can spend on other things. Merchants, goods and services increase their costs, and then if you're paying more for other things, you have less to give to charities, which gives us less to help people with. And the same with our friends in business that we've been working with on this issue. They're concerned that if they're paying more for electricity, they will have less to donate to Austin, nonprofits, and less to invest in the community.
With that, we're out of time this evening. I want to thank each of our guests for providing the facts, details, and observations all of us will need to make an informed decision on our city's energy needs. As we've learned, this is not an easy decision, so I encourage everyone to do their homework. If you would like more information about the proposed Resource and Climate Protection Plan to 2020, you can go to austinsmartenergy.com. You are also invited to an important public meeting this Tuesday, February 22nd at 6 p.m. at the Palmer Event Center. You can see the entire Roger Duncan interview, panel discussion, and a special media roundtable with further analysis on klru.org. And you can also listen to this entire program again online at KUT.org or watch it online at klru.org or statesman.com. For KLRU, KUT 90.5 FM, and the Austin American-Statesman, I'm Alberta Phillips. Thanks for joining us on Austin at Issue.